Kurdish militants have attacked and killed 24 in Turkey. We go to Mark Champion now, who's covering the story from Istanbul. Mark, this seems to have enraged the head of Turkey, and he vows revenge for these attacks will be great and in multiples of what the militants did.
Yes, indeed. I mean, this was a large attack. This conflict has been going on for almost 3 decades. But this was one of the largest since the early 1990s. 24 soldiers were killed, another 18 wounded, some very seriously. It was a large attack. The PKK claimed to us that they had some 200 of their fighters involved in the attack. It was close to the border with Iraq. So it's really a very serious escalation in what has been a conflict that had for some years reduced in scale.
So this presents the US with a bit of a problem here, doesn't it? Because Turkey is a NATO ally and a very much lent upon NATO ally, and at the same time the Kurds are said to be friends of the US. So how does the US play this out when Turkey is pledging attack revenge in multiples of what the PKK did?
Well, I think you have to make a distinction between the PKK, who, although they have bases in northern Iraq, they're quite separate and have an awkward relationship with the authorities in Iraqi Kurdistan, the Iraqi Kurds. They are quite different. They speak, most of the PKK speak Turkish. Some of them are Syrian, some of them are Iraqi, but not many. Most of the Iraqi Kurds they're quite separate. They control their own area. So the US is able to make a distinction between the PKK on the one hand and the Iraqi Kurds on the other. But for the Iraqi Kurds, it is very difficult because to be put in a position of helping the Turks to attack fellow Kurds is very difficult.
Right, and Mark, can you describe for us the power dynamics going on in the region right now? The U.S. is pulling out day by day more of its troops from Iraq. Turkey has styled itself as sort of the modern leader of the Muslim world. How do those two forces interact on this issue?
Well, really, the geopolitics of this are pretty difficult and very interesting. Essentially, you have an area, the Kurds, there's an estimated 25 million ethnic Kurds that live in the region, about 12 million of them in Turkey. And then you have the next largest block are in Iraq, just across the border. Across the border again, the Turkish border, again with the border with Iran, you have another group of Kurds. And then again across the border with Syria, you have another group. So in this area, you have the PKK is able to move across these borders, and it has different fronts that it plays on all the time. So it's a very difficult moment now when you have Syria in turmoil anyhow, and the Kurds in Syria had been quiet until very recently when one of their activists was killed. So they're now getting involved in Syria. Part of the PKK is Syrian. It's about 1,500 of what we think are about 4,000 to 5,000 PKK militants in northern Iraq are Syrian. And then the PKK itself has an Iranian wing. So when you have all these things put in motion, and Iran now with a more difficult relationship with Ankara, simply because of Syria, Iran is a very strong backer of Syria, and Turkey has now withdrawn its support from the regime in Damascus. Plus, Turkey recently, as a NATO member, agreed to host a radar for an anti-missile system that NATO is installing, primarily directed against Iran. So you have a lot of different relationships which are coming into play at the moment. They're all new, and it's quite a tense moment for this to happen.
It does sound like a tense moment. Let's hope cool heads prevail in this. Thank you very much, Mark Champion, with the Wall Street Journal, reporting on that event.